Being born with a superpower in today's world is often a blessing in disguise. A superpower won't make you rich, famous, or highly successful in anything. Humanity's inventions have made a long list of powers obsolete, and because we don't face an alien invasion, many powers have very little use in the real world. Which is why I will rank the most common superpowers by usefulness for our modern society, starting with the worst ones. Super regeneration and invincibility. One of the most common abilities that is only useful if there is a constant threat and a reason to get hurt. There are no monsters roaming Earth, and most of human society is relatively safe. Sure, it's nice to not have to worry about getting stabbed or hit by a car, but you can still feel the pain. Unless you are into that, this ability has near zero utility. The jobs where this ability would make sense are in poor countries with very little or no pay. This is the worst ability on the list. Resurrecting the dead. Most people die from old age or diseases related to old age. With this ability, 95% of the time, you bring back old people. And despite what people say, most would not want to have their family around forever. Not because they don't love them, but because times change and many people don't. My granny could not even properly handle her flip phone. How is she going to handle TikTok? And we already have a problem with the demographic change. Old people will overwhelm the healthcare system and destroy the job market without you resurrecting anybody. Imagine even more old people who can't work and are completely reliant on young people and the government. This is the easiest way to destroy your society. Going from horrible to slightly less horrible, we start with invisibility. It sounds amazing in theory, but is only really helpful if you're a soldier or spy. And the idea of invisibility means you are hiding from someone. That sounds more like some criminal or creep than the average citizen. Shapeshifting. Shapeshifting to be somebody else is rather weird. You could use the credibility of famous people to make others do things for you, but that is a dangerous road. You could replace actors or famous people and play their body double, but these days we have CGI and deepfakes that already fool most people. Another option would be to shape into fictional characters, but overall, this ability has a negative feel to it because of all the nasty things you could easily do with it. Toxin and disease resistance. Our planet has few toxins in its atmosphere, and most diseases have been eradicated with vaccines. Sure, many people die every year from diseases, but most of them are either very young or very old. This power keeps you from dying from the cold or dementia when you are 90, but besides that, your power could be only useful in aiding other humans who have diseases. You could help in Ebola outbreaks, but seeing all those people suffer and die is not an easy job. Speaking to the dead. I'd rather assume that my dead family members found their peace wherever they are, and don't carry around the burdens they had during their lifetime. Being able to talk to them again is most likely going to shatter this illusion. Ignorance is bliss, but you can definitely monetize your ability. So many people would give their savings to talk to their loved ones again. But alternatively, you could talk to famous people long gone. Turn it into a podcast on YouTube. Though you need to be a specific kind of person to enjoy talking with dead people all the time without becoming one yourself. Passing through objects. Phasing through objects looks cool in the show, but actually is really impractical. Most of the time, this means you are breaking into somebody's property, and these days you really don't need to do that unless you are robbing them. The only situation this could be useful is during search and rescue missions where it would otherwise take days to find survivors. Telepathy. Instant communication and understanding through telepathy sounds great, until you realize what most people think about all day. And we are going to have brain-computer interfaces, which will result in something similar to telepathy, but without the monkey chatter. Erasing memories. Having to relive and overcome trauma through therapy takes time and energy. If you could just erase those memories, there would not be any trauma to begin with. But us humans form our identity through hardship and trauma, which means our identity gets lost if we forget how we became who we are. Unless you want to manipulate humans and make them forget what you did, this is not an amazing ability. Moving up to C tier, the abilities are actually getting useful. Super strength. Useless for everyday life, but great for a variety of jobs. You can be a one-person demolition team and carry heavy objects with ease, replacing the need for lots of expensive, specialized equipment. Not the most amazing job though. Cold and heat resistance. Radiators and air conditioning have been around for decades, making this power rather outdated in everyday life. It only becomes useful if you live or work in extreme environments. And besides exploring very niche corners of the Earth, there's not really any job where you purposefully put yourself in such danger. Night vision and X-ray vision. Both are replaced by technology, and although night vision goggles are expensive and getting X-ray takes some time, both are not a high priority for humans. Unless you work at night, night vision has little use. There is so much light pollution that you can't even see the stars anymore. Living in the city with night vision is more blinding to your eyes than helpful. With X-ray vision, you can become a specialized doctor, which sounds more promising, but is limited by how much you can work. Alternatively, you could X-ray the soil for minerals and oil, or maintain underground infrastructure. Plant control. Poison Ivy uses her plants to attack enemies. But besides that, plants are plants. There might be some plant sentience that you can connect to, which can be stimulating, but humanity regularly destroys rainforests, which you will be able to feel. If you have this ability, you have to move somewhere far away from civilization. You can regrow forests and terraform biomes while living on the fruits and crops of the plants, but unless you can find a peaceful place, this sounds more like a nightmare. Mind control. Controlling humanity with mind control feels like the plan of an evil mastermind. And it's not sustainable in the long term, because there are so many issues with centralized power. You might think you know how to rule society, but you will just repeat the mistakes of countries and kingdoms long gone. If mind control also allows you to force people to tell the truth, this might become really handy if you are in the police. It would make interrogations way easier and corruption could get eradicated completely. But it's also really easy to abuse. Unless you have strong morals, this sounds more like a burden than a gift. Enhanced reflexes and marksmanship. This is only useful if you are a soldier, acrobat, or play esports. Else, there is no situation where you need super reflexes. Control over weather. You could block out the sun for a few years and improve the ozone layer to stop climate change, which is a noble cause in itself, but afterwards, there's nothing much to do. You would most likely get hired from tourist boards around the world to bring sunny weather or let it rain for crops to grow. Talking to animals. Sounds fun, but let's be honest. Just as you wouldn't want to listen to what every person on Earth has to say, you wouldn't want to hear every animal. If the birds in the morning are no longer a nice chirping sound, but a harassing call for mating, you'd go crazy. You can become a mediator between humans and their pets. There has to be a market for that. You could also go the hermit's route and live somewhere in the forest and befriend the animals. From B tier on, every ability is worth having and the downsides are laughable. Super speed. The one currency worth more than money is time. Any ability that cuts down on mundane daily tasks and gives you more time is worth having. Instead of driving to work for 30 minutes, you'll be there in less than one. But you have to run slower than the speed of sound, or you would make a lot of noise. And you might need to stay away from highways to not cause accidents. Still, this is amazing for everyday life, and you could start your own company for high priority deliveries or supplying remote regions. Breathing underwater. Assuming you like swimming, this one is amazing. Most of our planet is ocean, but we have only been exploring a tiny part of it. With this power, you can spend the entire day underwater and dive into places most humans can only access with robots. You can explore the Mariana Trench and discover new species of fish. I mean, it's not as practical in everyday life, but you can literally go where no other human can. Super senses. Being more sensitive to sensations than any other human has to be a crazy experience. But it also has its problems. Most of our cities are loud and smelly. The same with most people. You want to live somewhere in the countryside to not get constantly overwhelmed by it. One profession you could pursue is the making of food. If you become the chef that makes the yummiest dishes imaginable, people will come to you from all over the world. But you can also turn it into a massive company that sells food, beverages, and perfumes. You will love the job and people will love your products. It is world-changing, just not the way most of us would expect. Flying. Flying is the buffed-up version of superspeed. Instead of traveling on the ground, you travel in the air, removing the speed restrictions and allowing you to get anywhere on Earth in a few minutes. You can have a croissant for breakfast in France, spend your afternoon slurping tea in Thailand, and come home to your isolated house in Northern Europe. You could also start your own company for deliveries or cut out the middleman when doing international commerce. Flying is better than superspeed, but not enough to belong in A tier. Teleportation. Flying is more fun, but teleportation is faster and lets you go beyond Earth. You can teleport to the International Space Station or be the first human on Mars. But you can also take humans with you. Transporting goods is even easier than when flying and more profitable. Healing. Humanity is plagued with an uncountable number of health issues. This power turns you into Jesus. Healing everyone with a touch on their body is truly a miracle. In most people's eyes, you become their savior and will be treated as such. And with millions of people worldwide being able to live their life to the fullest and work again, you are doing an amazing thing for humanity as a whole. Plus, your influence can shape societies. Jesus says we need to focus on climate change? Done. Jesus says we need to reduce food waste and help poor countries? Done. The ability sounds simple, but the influence of it will be remarkable. Never aging and living forever. When you can spend centuries on your career and business, you will become the best in your market. The compounded effect over millennia will make you the richest and most influential person on the planet. The only drawback is that everyone you know ages and dies while you stay young. And if you don't watch out, you might end up marrying your great-great-grandchildren. But this is only short term. Witnessing humanity travel to the stars and colonize the universe must be unimaginable. But to achieve long-lasting success with this ability, you have to grind. For centuries. Which is why this one does not belong in S tier. Now we're getting to the truly broken abilities. With any of these, you could change humanity forever while being as close to a god as it gets. Duplication. This ability changes the entire human economy. When you can duplicate a Tesla, there's no more need for manufacturing, which is the hardest part of mass-producing anything. You can duplicate and sell any product for 99% profit, and then put all the profit into research and development. Humanity gets amazing, cheap products, and new technologies are developed and spread at an insane pace. Also, you will be the richest person to have ever lived. Enhanced intelligence. With this ability, you will have figured out fusion energy by the end of this video and colonized Mars by next summer. People will be scared of your intellect, but they won't know better. You will be the supreme leader of humanity and rule it with your impeccable brain. Time travel. You can shape reality to whatever you want by playing around with the past and future. You want to know who really built the pyramids and why ancient civilizations vanished? Just go back and find out. But you will lose your connection to the world you lived in. How much do you still care about your family when they no longer exist in some other timeline? Or when you decide to marry someone else? If you play around too much, you will lose yourself. But this risk comes with the powers that completely distort reality. There is one more power on this list that does not really belong in S tier, because even among the broken abilities, this one is on another level. Telekinesis and controlling matter. Telekinesis in its highest form completely breaks reality. All human problems become irrelevant if you can fix them instantly by rearranging some atoms. If this doesn't make you God, then I don't know what does. With this power, you are the creator inside your own game. You can manipulate everything and anyone. Most of us can't even grasp what that means. And that's the Superpowers in Modern Society tier list. If you liked it and want to see more tier lists, give it a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.